This mysterious story made a small town in the American hinterlands famous forever. Its residents began receiving anonymous letters describing all their dirty secrets. By the time everyone realized it wasn't a prank, it was too late. The letters led to unexplained deaths, prison sentences, and a fear that permanently gripped the once friendly town. In this video, we will tell you the mysterious story of Circleville, which is worthy of a full-fledged movie adaptation. Imagine receiving a letter from an unknown person who knows everything about you, from the places you go to your most intimate secrets. But then, it gets even scarier. The unknown person starts threatening to reveal all your secrets if you don't do what they say. Now imagine that these letters are not only coming to you, but to the residents of an entire small town. And it seems the anonymous author knows the secrets of literally every resident. Sounds like a movie plot, doesn't it? But all of this happened in 1976 in the American town of Circleville, Ohio. Before these events, almost no one had heard of the town. It was a quiet, peaceful, and in some ways even boring town with a population of about 10,000 people, where almost all the residents knew each other. One day, all that changed. Many residents began to receive creepy letters containing threats and secrets that many people would have preferred to keep to themselves. At first, it all looked like a prank. Someone familiar just wanted to play a joke. But how did they know the secrets of so many people? Rumors about these letters spread through the town, and with each passing hour, the residents became more and more frightened. For a simple prank, the anonymous person knew too much about too many people. At that moment, no one knew that the key figure in this whole story would be Mary Gillespie. She hid the fact that she had also received the creepy letters, as the secrets described in them could ruin her life. Mary earned a living by driving a school bus. The mysterious stalker wrote that he had been watching the woman's house for several weeks. He knew that Mary was married and had a child, and he also knew about her love affair with the principal of the local school. In the letter, the unknown person urged her to end the extramarital affair and threatened consequences if she did not. For several weeks, Mary lived in fear, trying to figure out the anonymous writer on her own, but she couldn't keep this secret. The letters began to arrive for her husband, Ron Gillespie, and their content scared the man terribly. The anonymous writer demanded that he get rid of his wife's lover, or he himself would face death. Mary assured her husband that she did not know the author and had no idea who it was. Deep down, Ron's reason told him he should believe his wife, but he simply couldn't accept this information. Ultimately, the couple decided to just ignore the letters. But everything changed when they received a letter with the following content. Gillespie, I gave you 2 weeks and you did nothing. Confess to the school board. If not, I will send the material to CBS. I will print posters, hang billboards everywhere, until everyone knows the truth. The couple continued to try to identify the anonymous writer, and Ron's sister's husband, Paul Freshour, fell under suspicion. His wife Karen was the first to voice this theory. She suggested that her husband might be behind the letters. It is worth emphasizing one important point here. Shortly before these events, Paul had learned that Karen was cheating on him, filed for divorce, and won full custody of the children, along with the house. Karen herself was forced to move out. The couple wrote a letter to Paul telling him that they knew everything and urging him to stop the blackmail without resorting to violence. For a moment, it seemed to have worked. The letters stopped. The family had no proof of Freshour's involvement, so it was impossible to hold him accountable. But they had achieved the main thing. There were no more letters, and the couple returned to their normal lives. Mary also considered her colleague, David Longberry, as a suspect. He had courted her for a while, but she had started an affair with the school principal. Of course, no confirmation of this version could be found either. August 19, 1977 was an ordinary day. The memories of the threats had already faded, and the family had returned to a normal life. That morning, The phone rang in the house, and Ron answered it. Mary paid no attention to the call, which she would later regret. Immediately after the short conversation, Ron lost his temper, grabbed a gun from the safe, and left the house. But he didn't get far. At the nearest intersection, his car crashed into a tree at high speed. Ron died before the ambulance arrived. Arriving at the scene, the police discovered that one shot had been fired from Gillespie's gun. They could find no reason why he might have used the weapon, intentionally or accidentally. And the accident happened right after the man left the house. The oddities didn't end there. The autopsy showed that Ron Gillespie's blood alcohol level was 1.5 times the legal limit. His relatives were shocked because they were sure Ron had left the house completely sober, and he didn't even drink on holidays, let alone on a regular weekday. Despite all of the above, the police ruled the incident an accident and did not conduct an investigation. Initially, the sheriff made a public statement promising to investigate the incident as thoroughly as possible, but later, he retracted his words. Perhaps the anonymous writer also knew the sheriff's dirty secrets and used them for manipulation. From that moment on, the story became even more confusing. The anonymous writer began sending letters to several people, demanding a more thorough investigation into Ron's accident. It seemed that the author was dissatisfied with the outcome. The letters began to arrive even more frequently, and their content increasingly worried the recipients and the town's residents. The writing style remained the same, as did the personal details about the recipients. However, Mary Gillespie, who had been the target of anonymous harassment all this time, suffered the most. After her husband's death, she admitted that she had indeed cheated on him, but only she and her partner knew about it. How could some anonymous person find out a secret that the lovers had so carefully hidden? Mary's suspicions again fell on Paul Freshour, and she reported her guesses to the police. The man denied any involvement in sending the letters, and no charges were filed. Despite the whole town whispering behind her back, Mary kept her job. Years went by, and it seemed that the anonymous writer had grown tired of his cruel game. It was only 6 years later that his actions shocked Circleville again. Mary was driving the school bus when she suddenly noticed writing on a road sign. There were threats against her daughter, and the woman ran out to remove the sign. As she got closer, she noticed a small box attached to the sign with a thin fishing line. The woman took the box and returned to the bus. Opening it, she was horrified to see a pistol that was supposed to fire when the box was opened. Fortunately, the trap's mechanism failed. Mary called the police. They found that the serial number on the pistol had been filed off, but it was done very carelessly. Detectives managed to restore it and find out the owner's name. It was Paul Freshour. Of course, they immediately came to him with questions. The man again denied his involvement in the case. According to him, the gun had been lost a long time ago, but the coincidence was too obvious for the police to leave him alone. The man was forced to undergo a handwriting analysis, but here the police, who had never worked on such complex cases, made a serious mistake. Paul was asked to copy letters directly from the anonymous writer's letter. This approach is completely wrong. The suspect should write different words and phrases from which experts can establish a match. Because of this mistake, the detectives concluded that Paul's handwriting matched that of the unknown person. He was officially charged with attempted murder using a pistol in a box. The trial began at the end of October 1983. Despite the fact that Freshour had a solid alibi at the time of the attempt on Mary's life, he was sentenced to 25 years in prison, with a recommendation not to be released on parole for at least the first 7 years. Paul pleaded for them to believe in his innocence, but no one listened. The residents of Circleville clung to the opportunity to end this whole nightmare, and the court's decision was enough for them to almost unanimously declare Freshour the blackmailer. Time went on. The alleged culprit was serving his sentence under strict conditions, with almost no contact with the outside world. And what do you think? The letters continued to arrive for the residents of Circleville, and their number only increased. In some letters, the anonymous writer accused the prosecutor who handled Ron's case of murdering his girlfriend, who was carrying his child. In others, he accused the coroner, who also handled Ron's case, of molesting minors. He demanded that the police investigate each of these episodes. Moreover, Fresh Hour himself once received a letter with the following text: "So, are you ready to believe that you will never get out of here? I told you 2 years ago. I set you up. You didn't understand anything at all." The prison staff denied any possibility that Fresh Hour could have been the author of all these letters. According to them, he simply could not have pulled off such a mailing under their noses. Despite this, he was transferred to solitary confinement, where he had neither paper nor a pen to write anything. But the letters did not stop. The court did not care at all. Paul remained in prison, and after 7 years of confinement, he was denied parole. The reason was banal. The letters continue to arrive, which means Fresh Hour still poses a danger. There was another absurd moment in this whole situation. Paul's prison was in the city of Lima, Ohio, and the anonymous letters were postmarked from Columbus. After some time, a witness came forward who provided important information to the police. On the day Mary found the pistol behind the road sign, another bus driver had noticed a parked Chevrolet car at that very spot, with a man standing next to it. According to his description, he looked nothing like Paul. However, this did not affect the decision on parole either. It was only in May 1994, after 10 years of imprisonment, that Paul was released. In the same year, the letters suddenly stopped. But the story was far from its conclusion. Remember the letters in which the anonymous writer accused the judge and coroner of serious crimes? All of this turned out to be true. The prosecutor had indeed killed his secret lover, and the coroner had repeatedly committed crimes against children. Moreover, Mary's colleague, who was also a bus driver, had assaulted an 11-year-old girl and went on the run. It turned out that the unknown blackmailer really knew much more than an ordinary person should.
But now it's time to ask the main question. Who was this mysterious anonymous writer? And what was the point of his actions? The internet is full of theories on this matter. Some of them seem completely illogical, others are quite consistent with the events that occurred. And only one version seems so plausible that it makes it a possible solution to this eerie story.
Let's recall Mary's colleague, David Longberry. After the woman rejected his advances, he could have become angry and started the harassment. The first batch of letters was dedicated to other residents of the town. Ron always believed that Longberry was the author of the letters, but he had no proof. The call received by the Gillespie family on the morning of August 19, 1977, could have been made by David. And for Ron, this was the last straw. A man who very rarely drank alcohol could have gotten drunk for courage. And at some point, he decided to talk to Longberry face to face. However, the police report says that Ron must have been very drunk, and this could have been the cause of the fatal accident. However, this theory does not explain who fired the shot from Ron's weapon and when. But then comes the most interesting part. The subsequent letters could have been sent by a completely different person, Fresh Hour's wife Karen. Moreover, she could have been the one who wrote the creepy inscriptions on the road signs and placed her ex-husband's pistol there. Her motive is very simple. After the divorce, the woman lost custody of her children and her home, and all this time she was looking for a way to get revenge on her ex-husband. When David Longberry started this whole story with the letters, Karen saw a great opportunity. Remember the witness who saw the Chevrolet car and the suspicious man next to that very road sign? The man looked like Karen's new boyfriend, and his relative had a car of the same make and color. But the coincidences don't end there. Once, Karen asked Paul's sister to lend her his typewriter, as she was allegedly going to write a book. Paul's sister was very surprised by this request, as the couple was in the middle of a divorce process at the time. But Karen insisted and took the typewriter. And what do you think? Some of the anonymous letters received by the residents of Circleville were written on this very typewriter. You must agree, all these facts look too suspicious to be a mere coincidence. It can be said with absolute certainty that Paul had no way of writing letters from prison, which means he was indeed innocent. Karen hated him with all her heart and was looking for any opportunity for revenge. She managed to put her ex-husband in prison for a long 10 years. If we stick to this version, Longberry and Karen plunged an entire town into real chaos, and all for the sake of personal revenge. Their actions made the small, quiet town famous all over the world, which they themselves hardly expected. But most importantly, they managed to avoid any punishment, while the life of an innocent man was destroyed. Subscribe to the channel to listen to these real and scary stories. Sometimes these stories end well, but more often badly. It's disturbing.